Mounting popular anger in Lebanon as stinking piles of rubbish grow, with a deeply divided government unable to deal with it. Hezbollah and Christian politicians have boycotted cabinet meetings. So where does that leave Lebanon? And is the country headed towards another cycle of unrest? This is Inside Story. Hello there and welcome to the programme. I'm Laura Kyle. It was triggered by outrage over uncollected rubbish on the streets of Lebanon's capital, Beirut. But now protesters are demanding the government resigns. And they have a long list of reasons why it should. Lebanon has not had a president for over a year. Parliament has twice extended its mandate without elections, some say unconstitutionally. And as the political crisis worsens, so too does Lebanon's inability to deal with its problems. Waste has gone uncollected since the capital's main landfill was closed just over a month ago, and the government is unable to agree on a new site. Lebanese people have also had to endure daily power cuts and water shortages, and they're dealing with the fallout from Syria's war next door, which has flooded the country with refugees. Plenty to discuss with our guests today, but first, here's Jamal El-Shayal setting things up from Beirut.
We're in the center of Beirut and the smell here is unbearable. The rubbish has been piling up here for days, if not weeks. Now, whilst there is an attempt to get rid of at least this mound of rubbish, there are several others, dozens actually, just round the corner, and that's what's triggered the latest anti-government protests. But to make things worse, the political situation here is also becoming more difficult because the different sects, the different parties are finding it difficult to agree on how to move forward, how to respond to the anti-government protests, how to respond to allegations of corruption. And as always, sectarianism in Lebanon is playing a part. Already Michel Aoun from the Free Patriotic Movement said that his party won't be taking part in Thursday's cabinet meeting. That comes after six ministers had walked out of an extraordinary emergency cabinet meeting on Tuesday. Saturday, there's a build-up to greater anti-government demonstrations by the You Stink movement, aptly named because of this rubbish crisis. How big those are and what kind of effect they can have on the government will be a very big indicator on how things move forward, if they do, in Lebanon. Jamal El-Shayal for Inside Story, Beirut.
Let's bring in our guests now. They're all in Beirut. We have Kamal Wasne, a political analyst and founder of the Center of American Strategic Studies in Beirut. We have Alexandra Al-Hajj, a human rights activist, and Rami Khoury, director of the Issam Fares Institute for Public Policy and International Affairs at the American University of Beirut. Welcome all of you to Inside Story. Great to have you with us. Alexandra, start with you. The big question here is, how has Lebanon reached this point where even basic services like rubbish collection are not being provided?
Okay, so this is the same question I'm trying to ask the Lebanese people and the Lebanese government, which is, by the way, illegal, and it is unofficial because the parliament is not legal and we did not have our elections. What we are trying to ask the authorities, why have our basic rights and even our constitution not been implemented? There are three basic legal rights in our constitution which demand their, their actual confrontation. One, basic elections that prove our democracy. Two, the municipality law, which gives the municipality the right to handle the garbage. And three, and most importantly, is how do I want to say it? Muhasabah, which is
accountability, I'm being told.
So accountability to two ministers who have violated local and international regulations and conventions. We will be talking about these 6 regulations which have been broken further in the show.
Okay, Kamal Wasne, Alexandra getting straight in there with some very big issues, raising or questioning even the legality of the government itself. Do you agree that the government as it stands, which has twice extended its mandate without elections, is illegal or unconstitutional, should we say?
Well, basically, the political condition in Lebanon is about providing the security of country and basically not to go into chaos. And for that reason, when the government extended for itself, it's in a sense, yes, some people can question that the integrity of the government, but we have to have government. And if we don't have government at this juncture in time, especially what is taking place around us, we might be in chaos. I think at this point, yes, the government, this is what we have right now, and we have to preserve it until we have a new election that carry the country further. I think it's a legitimate government, it's a legitimate parliament to a certain extent, but eventually we hope a better democratic system where they bring a new laws where you can have a real verifiable election.
But Kamal, how do you make this government work as it is and indeed then provide the services that Lebanese people expect when you're not even getting Hezbollah and its Christian allies attending cabinet meetings?
It's very difficult right now because I think we have the parliament is closed, is shut down because a lot of parties do not want it to go there. We don't have a president at the top of the government. We have this cabinet and now we have this functional cabinet because I think part of the cabinet wanted to actually elect a president, but they wanted a president that probably suit them, and this is not really happening. If we think that Lebanese can decide who's going to be president, that would be easy, but the issue of being a president in Lebanon at this point has to be a major international consensus, a major regional consensus, and that is not happening right now. We have to look around us and see what is taking place. We live in very abnormal time, especially what is taking place in Syria, in Yemen, in Iraq, and everywhere around us. And I think to have maybe a garbage problem right now or problem with electricity, maybe in a way we have to be thankful that's all what we have.
Rami Khoury, your view on this, bring you into the discussion at this point. What's your idea on this current state of the government?
Well, clearly, by the letter of the law, it is not a legitimate government. The parliament certainly is not legitimate. The real fact that comes out of all this is that the constitutional provisions and the letter of the law don't actually count that much in Lebanon right now. And in fact, they don't count much anywhere in the Arab world. This is the great dilemma of the entire Arab world, and that's why you had tens of millions of people demonstrating in the streets a few years ago, and why the Lebanese have finally risen up and demanded their rights as citizens. There's a functional core problem in the inability of Arab countries, and now Lebanon is a shining example of that, to actually create a situation where an efficient, accountable government is responding to the rights and the wishes of the people, and that there's a mechanism of interaction between them that makes the government legitimate and that makes the citizens feel that they are citizens with rights. The biggest emotional driver of these demonstrations so far, and Saturday is going to be very big, is not just the garbage. The garbage was the trigger that pushed people over the edge. The biggest driver was the sense by millions of Lebanese that they are treated by their own government with total disdain, that the government doesn't care about people's rights, it doesn't care about their suffering, and it stays in this stalemated, moribund condition, and finally people have said, we've had enough, and that's the dynamic that's going on now.
Alexandra, do you agree with that? Do you agree that this protest movement is broadly about people feeling the government doesn't care?
No, I want to tackle the basic idea of a social contract. The social contract, which was developed by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, John Hobbes, and John Locke, spoke that we have a deal. The people give a government or a governmental body authority and taxes, and in return, the body will give the citizens and the people organization, security, and a sense of prosperity, which we realized it was not happening. But the garbage was an embodiment of this corruption. Some people regarded the governmental corruption as an opinion, but when the garbage issue rose, then you see the garbage, and you see that for 7 days the government did nothing about it. And not only did they do nothing about it, they escalated it by actually burning the garbage and disregarding all rules and regulations, all environmental standards for such problems. And further, after 7 days, they said they had a solution, so, you know, calm down. But when طلعت ريحتكم New Stink movement followed the trucks, they saw that the garbage was being thrown in the seas, in rivers, forests, and under bridges. And this is how you know what kind of government we are dealing with. So it's not just about garbage, but the garbage was a sort of national consensus and proof of the corruption of the government.
Kamal, do you first of all believe with Rami Khouri that the government has utter disdain for the people of Lebanon? And this issue of corruption that's been raised, is that systemic throughout the government?
Yes, we have really corruption in Lebanon, and that system been in existence for very long times. For over 20 years, we have corruption. We have a high level of debt. We have inefficient government. We have a lot of things, but we live in an unusual time. Now, I think the political system in Lebanon trying to preserve the security of the country, and I think that's what really important at this time, not to compromise the security of Lebanon. And I think this is not going to change overnight, where you have corrupt people in high places where they can actually meddle in the affair of the people. Yes, we need an election system that provide opportunity for everyone to be participant in this democratic system. But unfortunately, we live in unusual time. Today, the concern of this government is to provide the basic security and the stability for Lebanon.
I just want to jump in there, though, because it's not creating that stability and security, is it? Because we're seeing thousands of people coming out onto the streets protesting.
That's very normal comparing what happened in a lot of places around the world. I'm not saying we shouldn't give the right for the people to demonstrate and to raise their anger against their government, and sometimes you have chaos. But considering what is taking place, I think the security of the country is very important. If you want to look at chaos, every place you have demonstration on the street, you're going to see police tackling demonstrator and demonstrator fighting with police, and you're going to see a lot of people destroying things and burning things. Look at France, that probably thousands of cars was put on fire. But that's normal in a demonstration. But here, what we're looking for,
let's just let someone else answer
forward
that,
and preserve the security of the country.
Do you also agree that this is a normal situation? If you look at world events, protesters coming out onto the streets, it's nothing to worry about?
Oh, they're certainly quite usual, but what's unusual is the overall political context in Lebanon, which is very unusual, quite bizarre, and has reached the point where the probably majority of Lebanese won't put up with it anymore. And it's true that there's issues going on in Yemen and in Iraq and in other places around the region, but the fundamental flaw in the Lebanese system goes back about 3 or 4 generations. The sectarian system of government that shares power according to 18 different sectarian groups has led to an immobilization, the total lack of meritocracy, the total disappearance of real accountability, which has slowly eaten away at the legitimacy and the efficacy of the central government. Now, people put up with this for a long time because life was okay and Lebanon has such a wonderful place with tremendous freedoms, and so it's definitely, in my view, the best place to live in the Arab world. But it reached a point now with electricity cuts 10 hours a day, water that comes out of your faucets with the taste of salt in it when the water's there, which it isn't always, the garbage situation with other things all adding up, and the total stalemate in the government, people not even being able to agree on meeting for a cabinet session. People have pretty much had it. And they want significant change. They want the garbage picked up, but they want the political system to be revalidated, re-legitimized, and re-energized. And that can only happen through a link with the citizenry that directly helps shape the government system, and that's been lacking.
Alexandra, when you look at the political system in Lebanon, what do you see as being the solution? Do you agree with Rami that it is to get rid of this sectarian-based power-sharing system?
I definitely agree, but I really must answer your first guest who said that the problem is with the security, and so the government is not allowing us to protest due to security reasons. I would first like to explain that this was the same answer which the Minister of Interior Affairs gave, and he actually said that in democratic countries, security forces do give tear gas bombs and fire air at people, and this is what I want to reply to. With all due respect, first of all, what kind of security is here in Lebanon when one of the bodyguards of a corrupt politician is angry on the road and gets up and kills another man because he did not move his car for him and is not held accountable? Two, this was an event that happened about three months ago or less. Second of all, what we are asking for is the implementation of our constitution, which is not being implemented. We are not asking for anything different. We are asking for elections. We are asking for municipality law to be implemented, and finally accountability. It's very weird that the Minister of Interior Affairs only finds these issues to be adopted from other countries. Second of all, he literally broke 4 international conventions. First is proportional retaliation, which if we are weaponless protesters, you cannot retaliate with bombs and fire, even live firearms and other ways, and you're not allowed to let your security forces follow us and trap us in public spaces to throw bombs at us, tear gas bombs. And they actually followed and trapped us in Beirut Souks, a private mall, a private property mall. And so they tackled here the right to protest, the right to peaceful protest, and as well the right to non-violent escalation tools, which we tried to do. We tried to symbolically remove the fence without weapons, as to say and preach that the building you are protecting is supposed to carry the legitimate legislation rules, which is
Alexandra,
unofficial,
I'm going to jump
and
in
they're not
because
doing anything
Kamal,
in this building.
You must hear from Alexandra the anger that is reflected in her voice, and that is anger that we are seeing on the streets of Lebanon. These protests aren't going to go away. They are now demanding a change in government. Are any of those politicians actually listening?
Well, everybody is angry in Lebanon. Basically, we are angry at what is taking place at the country. We are fearful that we are not stronger than Greece, and we're not stronger than Cyprus, and we are not stronger than a lot of countries that is collapsing in front of us. And we wanted to change. We wanted to fix the infrastructure of the country. I took my daughter to that demonstration. I wasn't talking about security at that event. I was talking about the security of the country, that we don't want to go into a war where something is happening in Syria or in Yemen. Maybe the young lady did not really understand what I said. My 3-year-old daughter was on my shoulder, and I was walking and demonstrating against what is taking place. But my concern right now is how to preserve the country and the integrity of the country. Yes, politicians are worried about what is taking place. We have to come all on the street and say we are fed up by what is taking place. But at the same time, we have to make sure this demonstration will not get out of hand. But in the end, we have an army, we have security, we have to protect, we have to preserve those securities, those army people, because in the end, we cannot live in a chaotic situation where there's a lot of chaos, and we see ourselves like what is taking place in Libya or Yemen or other places, or even in some country like Egypt, where they have all these kind of terrorists attacking areas here and there. So we have to be very careful how to voice our anger.
Okay, and there will be an opportunity on Saturday to demonstrate that. Rami Khouri, what do you think is going to happen on Saturday? Because there are fears that these protests are going to get violent and more violent.
Well, they certainly won't get violent because of what the demonstrators want. The demonstrators have clearly been saying that these are peaceful demonstrations and perfectly legitimate, and the government says they should be allowed to demonstrate peacefully. There's some troublemakers who come in and provoke the police. There's accusations that these troublemakers are thugs sent in by some of the political parties who are linked to some of the key people in the government. So there's a big debate about that. I think the real question now is how strong is the national public support for the basic issues that the demonstrators are raising of the garbage, the electricity, the services, but also the legitimacy of the government, the need for new elections. It's not clear if a large number of Lebanese support this or a small number. There's about 20,000 people who took the streets the other night, which was quite impressive. I imagine we're going to get much more than that on Saturday. The key will be if you get municipalities, NGO groups, civil society. You had the lawyers coming out the other day saying they're going to support the demonstrators by pro bono court cases to protect them. So we need to see how big this is. And the real problem is that it's easy to bring down the government of the Prime Minister Salam now and wait a few months for another one. That's easy to do. That happens all the time. The big problem is the real power in the country, which is a small group of powerful sectarian leaders who basically control the government. And the bigger issue is the role of Hezbollah and the Lebanese armed forces, the two main military groups in the country. They're working together to secure the country now, but that has to be worked into a political agreement which can then allow the democratic transformation of Lebanon to happen. And nobody's talking about this now because it's too big of an issue. So the Lebanese have put themselves in a difficult corner.
Yeah, an awful lot of big issues that need to be tackled. Alexandra, if we look to this protest movement, how much momentum do you think it has to take on these issues? Can it see it through to the end?
To be honest, I agree with the first guest and the second. They were talking completely valid points. But I would like to state that the violence of the protest is not happening from the peaceful, weaponless protesters, but rather the armed forces. We just need to keep moving it forward because we are running out of time. How much momentum do you think these protesters have moving forward? Not so much, to be honest. They have the 20,000 that came, because the rest are all under they are under alarmed by those warlords, because we have a clientelist-based system here in Lebanon. So every warlord who's in the parliament has his or her own people, actually his, not her, we barely have females, has his own set of people who do have their rights, who do have electricity, water, public education, who do have everything because of those warlords, not because of a strong national government. So not all Lebanese people are with us.
Okay,
and so
Kamal,
this is the question
we
I
just
would
have
like to
about
ask.
a minute left. Just want to give the last word to you. The extent you think that Lebanon is ready for change?
Yes, I think Lebanon, I think a lot of people are with the demonstrator on the street. I disagree with the young lady. I think there are a lot of people who wanted to come, who wanted to be on the street. This is a consensus that the country needs to change. I think we need to amend the constitution in Lebanon in order to rectify the mistake that is taking place, and we have the impasse that we have. I think I have a lot of faith that eventually the people will overcome this difficult time in history. But I think considering what is taking place, it's going to be a limit to how much change we can do at this point. There's a lot of problem with this country, and it's not going to be resolved anytime soon. Absolutely.
Thank you very much to all our guests for joining us today. A fascinating discussion. It'll be very interesting to see what happens over the weekend there in Lebanon. Kamal Wasney, Alexandra Al-Hajj and Rami Khoury. And thank you too very much for watching. If you have any comments about today's show, do get in touch by going to our programme page at aljazeera.com or post your comments on facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also tweet us at AJ Inside Story. From me, Laura Kyle, and the whole team here. Bye for now.